Linguists communicate as a profession. We do it all day, and all of it is necessary, from the ideas our clients want to share to the follow-up on tricky or nuanced terminology inside a translator-reviewer team. As internal communication is an integral part of a successful project, we set to the task of making it more efficient. First, where are the inefficiencies? Well, take this scenario. You're revising a translation and the translator has picked an option you're not sure about. You can't find it anywhere and you don't know how or why they opted for that translation. Or maybe you're the translator and you're unsure about a term and need the reviewer to pay close attention to this one in particular. So, what do? Send them an email, a quick message on Teams or Skype, give them a call or video conference them? That's what we used to do, and sometimes because of time constraints, didn't do. So there's got to be a better way.
Well, to reduce these interruptions, on two fronts might I add, we used the PDCA method, as we always do, and turned to an informal office practice of leaving comments using memoQ's built-in feature. Since to effectively communicate everyone has to be on the same page, we formalized it by color-coding the types of comments. Here's an example of a nice little rainbow of comments. We'll get into the underlying meaning of each color later, after this small demo.
So, how can you do this? First, you select the text that you want to add a comment to, either on the source text or on the target text. Then, you click Comments or use the shortcut Ctrl-M. Here, you can pick your color. So, information is blue, warning is orange, error is red, and other is green. Next, you double check that you've selected the correct text that you want to apply the comment to. So you can also do it for the entire row or for the entirety of the source or target text in the segment. Then you write out your comment and click OK. And this is what it looks like. If you hover over it, you can see the comment itself as well as metadata about it. You can also highlight text without actually adding a comment by using this feature here and picking the color you want. Then you can check all of the comments either by going here or clicking here. All of the comments to this segment will show up here and you will be able to edit them or delete them at will right here. So, how do you pick which color to use? First, there's blue. I've done my research and here are at least 2 references. Feel free to look if you doubt me, but I'm 101% sure, or I talked to the client and this is what they want. This is useful for acronyms, abbreviations, and very research-intensive terms, since if the translator found the term hard, it stands to reason the reviewer also will, and without the source information, I have to duplicate all those research steps independently for diligence. This is the most trustworthy color, so it's important to keep in mind that blue is sacred. You shouldn't risk tainting it with wrongful uses, as the reviewer needs to be able to trust your blue comments and possibly skip them when short on time. Here's an example of a blue comment with 2 sources from research. Next is green. This is when you have options. I chose this, but all these are valid, and some may sound nicer to the reviewer, or I chose this because I thought it was prettier, nicer, but here's the literal version. This is mainly reserved for non-critical information, like stylistic options, alternatives, or other relevant information. Keep in mind that green is also supposed to be trustworthy, and in a tight deadline, may also be skipped over by the reviewer, so don't use it if you're unsure about your choice. You can see 2 practical examples of this here, where instead of choosing a more literal option, the translator picked terms, descriptions used in good English sources.
Orange. I found this, but I'm less than 100% certain. Or just generally pay attention to this. Or yes, this is a typo, but I can still figure it out. Or I use a term different from the one in the term base, and here's why. In order not to pollute the blue color code, orange is useful for strong guesses and safe bets, or anywhere a translator might have second-guessed themselves and wants to leave another option or point out some kind of ambiguity. A good way to decide between leaving a blue or an orange comment is to assume that if the reviewer doesn't have a lot of time, they will have to focus their attention mainly on orange comments. So always use orange whenever you need the reviewer to double check. As we can see here in this case, in this comment, the translator used orange to alert to the fact that they couldn't find any strong references for the term in the source language, meaning that the translation was literal and or possibly missed some nuance.
Finally, we have red. This is foobar. This is used to mark work-stopping client errors, such as errors in the original text or acronyms and terms that seem important that you can't find absolutely anywhere. In early iterations of Code Blue, red was less useful since at the time the procedures would be to contact the client for help with the problem. However, as we migrated to working on a memoQ server, simultaneous and collaborative work has become a lot more common and red's worth has grown. Now, if a reviewer comes across a red comment, they know it's still being resolved by the client, and they can freely ignore it for now. Another feature we use red for is to mark typos for easy aggregation of comments to send to the client. Here, the translator marked what is probably a typo for clarification with the client. So, to recap, this is how it all works.
By using this method, we reduced unnecessary back and forths and keep, and in some cases add, context for the reviewer, allowing for everyone working on the translation to be on the same page and to produce a more accurate and cohesive translation. Since the PDCA method is cyclical, we went back and identified some challenges such as adherence and consistency. This is not yet a perfect system, as it takes time to fully implement it in your workflow. There is also still some lingering apprehension by external vendors about using too much orange, which internally is the color we use the most. And since we have a long-established rating system, by pointing out areas of uncertainty, the reviewer frees up valuable time and energy to rate the translations with less stress from trying to figure out the thought process of the translator. We did some tracking and found a decrease in reviewing time of about 5 to 10% in smaller projects and 20 to 25% in larger projects using color-coded comments. This is especially relevant when working with freelancers, as there is often less communication between a freelancer and an internal reviewer, whether due to time constraints, lack of familiarity, or even fear of judgment for not being certain of every translated term. Instead of being afraid of admitting uncertainty about a term or a part of your translation and risking a lower quality translation, this allows for a more collaborative approach to the translation and revision process. This is why, after testing internally for months, we aim to implement it with all our vendors.
In a nutshell, the main things you should keep in mind when using these color codes are: try and keep your comments clear and concise, which is sometimes not an easy task, so that it's possible to read your comments out of context by striking a balance between informing the reviewer of all relevant information and not overloading the document with obvious or convoluted text. Then, if you had to research it, then you must color code it, unless, of course, it's already on the term base. Remember that one of the purposes of this system is to avoid unnecessary duplicated research. And once again, blue is sacred. If you're unsure between blue and orange, the answer's always, always orange.